This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Welcome to Season 3 of Truly Independent. I'm Garrett Batty alongside my co-host Daren Smith. Each week, we'll go in-depth with guests, industry experts, and we'll even share our own experiences, all with the goal of demystifying the independent film process. This season, it's all about the script, from the first spark of an idea to a polished final draft, breaking it down for scheduling, budgeting, and ultimately shooting. We'll walk through every step it takes to get from page to production. Welcome to Truly Independent.
Garrett, my friend, we made it. It's season 3 of Truly Independent. We did it.
We did it. Congratulations, Daren. I'm glad to see that I'm still with you on season 3.
Yeah, we're still doing it. We crossed our year mark like a month or two ago, so that was a big milestone. But now we're moving into the next phases of both our projects. Today we're going to talk about yours. Next week, hopefully, we'll talk about the one I'm working on. But kind of set the stage for us a little bit. Where are we starting this season from, and also why?
Yeah, I am very excited about this season and where it's going, and to be in this next phase on a project. So, for season 3, Truly Independent is going to focus on pre-production. We're going to be on the writing process, and we'll go into detail about different techniques and styles and approaches to writing and how to write efficiently and effectively. And again, this is through our own experience. We're not necessarily the experts. We're just sharing our experience with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So kind of set the stage for us. What triggered the transition from season 2, where we were really focused on kind of financing and pitching and a little bit of development, more like the story or the project development, as opposed to the actual script development, which we're going to focus more on in this season, but also moving from, okay, we have a story, now what? Whereas last season was more, how do we get to a story that's kind of greenlit? So set the stage for us. What happened with your project recently, and what can you share about it?
Yeah, well, good. We are going to document the process of writing the script and then breaking it down and getting it ready for production. So, for any independent filmmaker, that is the hurdle. Hopefully, this season or these next groupings of episodes will help you through that. And as Daren and I documented with Faith of Angels and The Carpenter, we kind of documented the distribution process. Hey, we've got a movie. Now, how do I get it out there? And then we've also been talking a lot about the development and like, okay, or I guess the pitch. We haven't been in development yet. It's just the pitch and how do I get a story ready for pitching? And the goal was to do that through getting some initial funding. And so recently, through a series of events that I'll go into detail on, we have a project that has received initial funding, and we will be now moving forward with that next step. The name of that project, the current working title, is called Where the Dog Heals. And who knows if that title is going to stick.
Is it a play on words at all?
Very much so.
Okay.
For the past several months, I've been developing this story. It's based on a book called The Winston Story. The author of this book reached out to me several months ago. He had seen Faith of Angels and reached out and said, hey, this is a story that I've written. This is my true experience of essentially a dog that was diagnosed with cancer. The dog was an integral part of this man's life and his ministry, and he couldn't figure out how this diagnosis with cancer was supposed to be helpful to his goal, mission, and what they were accomplishing together. The book details the journey of his faith and the dog, spoiler alert, being healed from cancer, and medical science kind of scratching their heads going, I don't know how this is happening, and it being a big trial of his faith, and then ultimately where that takes them in their ministry. So it's very, kind of down my alley as far as faith-based, inspirational, family movie that I was very, very excited about. So I took the book, created a pitch deck from it. What would a movie look like? Started to pitch that around. And then through a foundation, the Help Them See Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that we've started, we were to raise funds through donations, donating to faith-based stories. And the initial funding came in that enabled me to now focus on writing that script. There, I
Amazing.
feel like that's a really long explanation
No,
for.
that's a lot of stuff that's been happening behind the scenes that all culminated in you felt like you got to a point where you can move forward. It's essentially a green light to at least get into the writing phase, the early development process of what is this movie going to be. And so that's very exciting. One thing that I think is interesting, though, because I know this has happened at least on two of your movies now, where someone saw a previous movie of yours and then reached out and said, will you do one with me? So is this common? Like, does this happen every time where the next movie is like, oh, I saw this one that you did, and now I want to hire you to or work with you on my story? Or am I just connecting dots that no one has connected before?
Well, I think that, yes, I think that's very, very common. You see somebody's work, say, okay, that aligns with what I'm doing. Let's connect, see if there's potential to work together, see if we get along.
Mm.
I think we're both at this point in our careers where we can say, look, we don't need to necessarily work with people we don't enjoy working with. Let's
Yeah.
make movies with our friends. And those that have kind of the same approach to life and
Yeah.
filmmaking. The answer is yes, it happens a lot.
I only bring it up because I think it's important for people to realize that, like, when you make stuff, then you create opportunities for yourself. Jim Collins calls it the luck surface area increases. Those kind of conversations can come into your inbox or show up on your cell phone where someone's calling and saying, I saw your movie and I want to talk to you about the next thing. I mean, that's how you and I started working together. I was working on something. You called me and said, you want to do the next thing. Just to harken back to the long distance season 2, we need to be marketing ourselves and talking about the movies we made and putting them online and telling people about them. And you never know what sort of stuff's going to show up when you do that. So, okay, you've got kind of, can we safely say you've got like a green light for this project? It's moving forward. This is the one you're going to work to produce, whether it's this year or early next year. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, that's very safe to say. I mean, here we are. We are recording this August 11th. And, you and I have made weird announcements before, like, hey, August 1st, we're going to release a movie, whatever, November 15th or something.
Oh, wait,
Um,
we're going to release 2.
and now we're going to release two. Yeah. So who knows? So take this for what it's worth. But yes, we're definitely in full steam ahead on Where the Dog Heals. My goal is to, by the end of August, to have the first draft of the script complete. And let's detail how we're going to make that happen. Oh, and to be funded. So we don't have full funding yet for the movie, but there's enough momentum and enough interest and enough people that are saying, yeah, we want to get behind this, that I believe that when we record our podcast on September 1st, whenever, we will say, okay, now we're moving into kind of breaking down that script in full pre-production.
Amazing. That's very, very exciting. Congrats, man. You did it. You got to the next phase, and that's always the hardest part, is getting it greenlit. So, why the script? Why are you starting there? Why not get all the money first? Why not go and attach some cast? Why not figure out what state has the best incentive? Like, why are you starting with, I'm being a little facetious, but why are you
Yeah,
starting with
yeah.
the script?
Well, yeah, I know you're being facetious because you know that all of those things are happening also behind the scenes, But we just know that, look, the script is the foundation for the project, right? No matter how good the cinematography is, the location, the performances, or production value, the script is the foundation, and you can't, go past a bad script, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And what's the
so
saying that, like, a great director with a crappy script is no better than an okay director with an amazing script? Like, you'd rather bet on the okay director with an amazing script because it solves so many of the problems that are inherent in making movies. And so devoting time, investing time in this phase is essential. And part of the thing I've been promoting the last year as I've been talking to investors and people about this film fund is how important development is. And you're like, but what about the script? Are we going to do any rewrites? Are we going to look at it? Are we going to read it together?
yeah,
Like, can we slow down a second and make sure the script's in a good place? Because again, if that's not working, it doesn't matter. Anything else down the line is going to be affected by that.
right. Right. And one of the things we've found too in doing our projects is the script is always evolving. It's okay. There's nothing precious about a script, nor should there be, because you and I are going to get into pre-production and trying to solve location issues or character count issues or budgetary issues. And the first thing that has to be flexible is the script. Like we have to be able to say, oh, you know what, maybe that perfect scene that I felt was like, oh, this can't be touched. It's not so perfect anymore.
Yeah.
So that has to be said. But yes, we've gone from pitching the idea like, hey, here's this idea and here's this amazing pitch deck and these amazing visuals, and people are all very, very excited about it, where they don't have to imagine what the story is. They now can see what your vision is. And now the script has to align with that. Like, here we go. Like, once we have the permission, it's like we bought the land. Now we need to create the blueprint.
Yeah, no, I love that analogy. I think you highlighted something really important, which is this kind of myth of the perfect first draft. And I think a lot of younger writers or less experienced writers, I know in the past I had this issue with our scripts where I would hesitate because I was worried that it wasn't there yet. And just like a first edit of a movie or a project, you benefit by showing it to people, because then you kind of get that queasy feeling in your stomach of like, oh, I really hope they don't catch this error that I made right here. And then you can, subconsciously or write down like, oh, I need to work on that part because it gave me those tummy grumbles of like, oh, I don't like that part. And I think it was Jordan Peele that said it, or at least it's attributed to him when I see it on Instagram. But like, he had this idea of the first draft is shoveling sand into the sandbox, and it's just putting it in there. And then with draft 2 through 15, which is typical for especially indies, but I think any script, you're going to go through a dozen or more versions or drafts of that thing. But you need all of the material in the sandbox to play with. And then you can start shaping and putting it into buckets and doing all this stuff and seeing how it looks and taking a step back and going, oh, I don't really love the height of that, so I'm going to trim that down a little bit. I love that analogy because it really just shows the preciousness we have as writers around the first draft having to be perfect, because everything rides on this perfect first draft. It's just not real. We're shooting ourselves in the foot and making it even harder on ourselves to get the project move forward.
Right, right. You cannot create without matter, right? And that matter is going to be totally unorganized. And so, yes, to that first draft should be unorganized. Just download all of the research and the story and whatever's in your mind, download and get it on the page. So one of the things I use to do that, and there's a talented local writer named Brandon Ho, and he writes amazing independent films and has had several produced. And he, a few years ago, walked me through his process that I've kind of adopted, and I use to get that initial first draft out. And I think he calls it some sort of like the story tree. And I don't know if he took it from somebody else or what, but we all know as writers we've got this screenwriting, the plot and the structure, dramatic structure, right? So we know what that is, that exposition and inciting incident and rising action and all of that, like that exists. And this podcast isn't going to break that down. What he does for the story tree, and or at least what I took from what he does, is essentially creates a spreadsheet, about a 90 beat spreadsheet, and starts with 3 lines. His first act, second act, third act, right? This is what it is, just a 3-line summary of those things, and then breaks those down into 3 lines, like what has to happen in order to get to that. And he does that 3 or 4 times. It's almost like this tree or this pyramid chart, and to the point where he has now 90 lines and like 90 beat lines or slug lines or whatever they are, that is essentially his story. If you've done that, and for the past several months as I've been developing this story, I've been creating that tree, kind of that 90 beat tree, through research, meeting Tim Rupert and hearing his story, and then writing up my own character descriptions and my own kind of plot and what would happen in this story. His book is a biography, so any story is going to have just kind of elements that are not inherently cinematic. So you say, okay, how can we make these scenes fit this narrative structure of the genre of our movie?
Yeah. I'm big on structure. I'm an outline writer. I've loved the book, The Story Grid by Sean Coyne. He worked with Stephen Pressfield for years and years, both on his novels, but then also on his screenplays as kind of an editor. And it's a very similar structure, breaking it down, the first act, second act, third act, the inciting incident, the middle build, and the ending payoff. And then each of those has kind of 5 story beats, and then you can go a level beyond that to 5 story beats for each one of those, and you probably end up with more like 75. But same idea of making sure that every part of the story is there, and having some sort of structure that allows you to go, okay, yes, I did everything I need to do in the inciting incident or the first act to set up the rest of the movie. So now I can move on. It's very helpful. Like, I've never been the kind of writer that just plunks down and starts writing scenes, especially out of order, because it's like, well, what if I miss something? What if that's not there? So it doesn't mean it's the only way to do it, but I think you and I are very similar in the sense of, yeah, I want to know that I've got everything before I start putting words on the page, because I don't want to just end up with a whole bunch of words that I'm really in love with that are going to be hard to cut later because they don't actually serve the story.
This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Daren, you mentioned writing scenes out of order, which, yes, for me, that's always been a hard thing to do. However, sometimes I do have key scenes that I think, oh, this scene has come to me. I want to get this down.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do in order to make sure that that's productive work is in this early story development process where I'm putting down the beat sheet, that 90 beat sheet, and it is 75. But for that second act, I do extra because that second act is always longer and has kind of B and C subplots.
Yeah.
So on a big Google sheet, I take my essential timeline, hey, this story happens over these dates or this time period, and then my key characters, and fill in the matrix. So what is happening in my main characters, protagonists, what is happening here? And then where are all of my key supporting characters in that matrix? So that those key scenes that need to occur, if I say, oh, I want to just write this climactic moment right now, I can go to my story matrix and say, look, here's the climactic moment. Here's where all of my characters are. Some of them, this moment doesn't even apply to, but then I can really kind of pick and choose those favorite scenes that I want to write that I know are going to end up in the film, right? If I end up getting kind of a writer's block thing, I can rely on that matrix and say, who do I need? What moment is this in the narrative structure? Is this the Dark Night of the Soul? Okay, well, who is there at this point? And let's start from that point. And we can write a random scene that then helps facilitate what eventually becomes that plot point.
Yeah, I love that. So here's the other question then. As you're getting into this matrix, as you're thinking about story beats and character backstories and what they're going to go through, as well as being true to the story, because it sounds like another true story or based on actual events type thing, you're unique in that you're writer, director, producer, right? And so you're not just writing. Do you silo yourself into, I'm just the writer and I'm not going to have any consideration of budget or resources or timeline or like how hard it's going to be? Are you just purely writing off of, as the kids say these days, vibes? Are you allowing some of that producer brain into the equation and going, well, I can't write, but are you already thinking about budget? Are you thinking about where this is going to be shot? Are you thinking about the resources available? I'll stop there so you can answer the question.
Yeah, and that's a fun nod because I remember you reading your first read through of Faith of Angels and knowing kind of the budget limitations, and you came across that helicopter point, and I think I got a message from you that said, "Yeah, we're not having a helicopter in this movie."
We did.
And you did. You figured out how to pull it off. Yeah. So I try to silo myself and say, look, this is my job, my work for hire job right now is the writer. And so I believe that a good writer knows their genre that they're writing in and has to be mindful of producibility. As an independent filmmaker, and I always tell people this when I go present at film schools or presentations, and say you can't write yourself into a corner. Like, don't write beyond your resources, which I would often, as a first time writer, write scenes or stories or scripts that are unproducible. You say, oh, here's this amazing thing, but I don't have the resources to do that. And so I would encourage independent filmmakers to say, what do you have access to? What do you know? What resources do you have? And write within those bounds.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I just contradicted myself or not.
No, I think you said it right in that, not right, that there's no right or wrong, but I think you're in a unique situation. So a lot of times writers, we may have talked about this, so I'll keep it brief, but when we did the panel at the Utah Film Fest, we had a lot of writers who would come up and say, my script is this and it's a $50,000 budget. And I really pushed back on that with a lot of people. I was like, why are you, the writer who's never done a budget before, telling me what the budget is? Like, don't do that. You're shooting yourself in the foot before I even know what the story is, and I'm out because I don't do $50,000 movies.
Yeah.
And so I think there has to be some sense of this is going to be a 500K to $1 million budget thing. And okay, great. That's enough to say I can write to that. Because I also met people at AFM years ago, and I'd say, well, tell me about your project. And they'd go, well, it's a $3 to $5 million horror. I was like, no, it's not. Those are two completely different movies. A 3 million and a 5 million. No, like you can't say that. You can say 3.2 to 3.5. It's like, oh, that's very specific. Oh, you must have done a line item budget or something. But it always irks me for some reason. And so I think it's smart to have an idea of what the budget is. But if you're a writer, my advice would be to write the thing that gets you going, right? The thing that excites you and gets you up in the morning so you can write those scenes and it's awesome, instead of, well, I really held back here because of the potential budget constraints.
And here's what I think can help inform that answer is there has to be a certain amount of research that a writer does so that they're familiar enough with the story and the world that they're playing in so that they do not limit themselves. Spent this last week in Atlanta, and I feel like that was a big breakthrough moment where I was through our foundation, we received funding to go do essentially this final research trip. And the week in Atlanta, we drove around with Tim to different locations where his story took place. And I got to see the accessibility we had to some production locations that would have been out of the realm of my mind as a writer or a producer. Like, oh, I don't want to write that moment because I know that's unproducible. But after spending a week out there and going, oh, we can just drive up and here's this incredible, unique dog diving ramp facility that we would have had to build and go, oh, no, actually within this 50-mile radius, we could shoot this whole movie. Suddenly that unlocked the ideas of like, okay, now I can write kind of freely within the world that we've been researching.
Yeah. That's always been not a trick, but something I've relied on too. Like whenever, even for commercial work, when I was writing scripts for commercial projects that were narrative commercial things, I would always go to a location, even if it's not where we were going to end up shooting. I just needed some physical space to go, oh, they're standing here and they're doing this and the light's this way. And I'm like,
Yep.
now that I'm in there, I've been at like the National History Museum up in Salt Lake and just plunked down in a corner with my laptop and wrote 30 pages because I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
great. Leave me alone.
yeah.
Because
I'm in the zone.
something about being in a physical space really helps. That's cool to hear that you were able to go and do that.
It also helps with, again, that character development and saying, okay, this is this individual. Here's the world that they live in. Now, that's not necessarily always possible. You're writing a historical fiction or something that, sci-fi movie. You can't necessarily go interview the alien. But I can tell you, I think the principle is the same. The amount of research, the wealth of information that is just kind of unorganized that now can become a script. If you're feeling like, oh, I don't know, I'm running into shortage of ideas, you need more information, you need more matter.
Yeah.
And so I think that principle is universal.
I'm wondering if the same thing that happened on Faith of Angels is going to happen on this film, where because of this story, because it's kind of a faith-based, uplifting, inspirational thing, just a lot of people kind of showed up and helped, right? There were people that we met. They're like, oh yeah, you can shoot here for free. I know the guy. I love that you're telling this story and I want to help make it happen. You're just like, oh my gosh, that saved us a lot of money. Thank you. And so I'm curious, did you feel some of that out there? Where did you meet other people besides Tim that were like, oh yeah, whatever you need, just let us know?
Absolutely. Yep. And I
Mm,
think that I mean, that's either the nature of a faith-based movie or just movie making in general. There is a certain amount of excitement, and especially in an area like rural Georgia, if we were in the middle of Atlanta, or, it'd be like shooting in LA. We're like, "Oh, you want to do a movie here? Okay, where's your permits?"
yeah.
But we did not get that. I didn't get that feeling, in Monroe, Georgia.
And well, I'm guessing, Georgia's a very film friendly state. And, I'm guessing they probably have a rural incentive as well, just like Utah does. And so there's probably opportunities galore when you start thinking about putting it together.
Yeah, I went out there with that intention and met with, a
Nice.
location manager and some production minded people, and said, "Look, this is an independent film in the realm of this budget, and do we have access to this, and what's the incentive like?" And so we already started planting those seeds, and got some great information to say, yes, hey, under 1.5, it's a right to work state, and at 1.5 now we go into union. We say,
Mm,
okay, well, that's a good mentality. So if we do 2.5, we'll need to be union. Um, but they certainly have plenty of experienced crews out there to help
yeah,
us do that.
very true.
It was very helpful.
So exciting. Like just all the energy around it is very cool. A couple more questions then. So you're not quite at the rewrite stage, but at what point do you involve other people in the process? Because the two times I've worked with you, you already had a script and there wasn't much development that needed to happen, first of all. But we didn't really work together on let's dive into the script and go beat by beat and scene by scene and that kind of stuff. So at what point, this is the first time I've kind of spoken with you about a project before the first page is written, when do you bring in, whether it's collaborators or co-writers or readers or feedback? How do you handle that part? Because I know a lot of people can get stuck on, I just got to do multiple drafts myself, and then it's 2 years later and they still haven't made any progress with the project.
Yeah. Well, I think that there is this, yeah, that's a good balance. In my experience, I feel like there's this phase of a project where all of the outside influences have to silence, and I've just got to write. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be the best thing in the world. I'm going to walk out of my office with the golden draft. I do feel like I have to turn off all of the outside influences and phone and social media and everything, and just write into that habit where there's consistent, daily page counts that are
Yeah.
churning out, 8 to 12 pages a day for 2 weeks. And then and we can come out of the kitchen and say, okay, now here's an opportunity. Uh, I think too much influence from a writing partner, or you get excited and you're like, oh, I got 10 pages done today. Hey, Tim, what do you think about this? And then you get into a debate and you start to refine what you already know, you already have to accept is going to be garbage. So give me 2 weeks to just create a garbage draft. And now I can go, okay, now let's get some outside opinion on it.
Yeah. My take has always been I don't really show people the first draft. I did that once and it really bit me in the butt. And so I don't do that anymore. I really am a big fan of knocking out a draft in like 15 days and letting it sit for a week or two and just going, okay, I got it all on paper. Let me get some distance from it. Let me come back with fresh eyes and read it and go, oh, that made me smile. Circle that. Oh, that didn't work at all. Cross that out. I'll do a slash and highlight draft on my own first draft. And then I can go, okay, what is it about this part that I crossed out that's not working? Let me look back to the structure. Oh, yeah, it's supposed to be this scene, but I wrote it like this scene. And so it's not doing the job it needs to do. It's in the right place. It just needs a rewrite. So I'll just crank it out. And that's the rewrite process I get into, which I love. I love the rewrite process. I love it on my books. I love it on my essays and my blog posts. I love it on screenplays. But that's my approach. So I usually don't send my first drafts out to people because I know that the feedback they give me, I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's not
Yeah.
cool.
If you're sending out a draft and you go, okay, I know that this is wrong, then it'd be good to just polish that up and then send it out. This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org.
Yeah.
Daren, to now shift into a theme that I know is near and dear to your heart. How do we use AI in this process? And I'm excited because it's been very, very helpful, and I've been using it in a good way. And I just think Daren would love it. Daren would support this. He'd endorse this,
Yeah.
because it is that initial draft that I think, or initial scene or 10 pages that you can bounce into AI, into ChatGPT or whatever. Or, I've been taking AI and saying, look, here's our 90 beat story structure. Just get to know this. And AI, here's all of the hours and hours and hours of interview that I've done with primary character and supporting characters. And here's my timeline matrix, and just built this essential library so that my AI project is very, very familiar with this story. And
Yeah.
it's okay. Now I need a scene from this beat and this slug line. And AI does the first garbage draft of that scene. It won't do a whole movie. Don't even burden it with saying, now write me a script. It would say, write me a scene with this thing. And then I can take that into final draft, reorganize, rewrite, and polish that scene to get it the right tone and feel. Then take that back into AI and say, here's that scene revised. This is the direction we're going. Next scene I'd like is this to happen, and so forth. And that has been really a fun and creative process, despite what you might think about, like, hey, AI is writing a movie for you. Not at all. It's been very, very rewarding.
I like AI as a tool, not a voice. And if it helps make the process more fun, if it helps it go faster, if it helps it be less stressful and arduous and anxiety inducing, those are all good things. And we have lots of tools. We don't write screenplays on typewriters anymore. We use Final Draft or Fade In
Yeah.
or Highland or whatever you use, like, because those tools are more effective and efficient in the job that you're trying to accomplish. And so there's a couple of things you highlighted or said that I think are important for people who are maybe like not Luddites, but are late in the game. I think we're still very early in the game on AI. But if people have not used AI at all, you mentioned an AI project, and with like ChatGPT specifically, and I think with a couple of the other like Claude and other AI LLMs, you can essentially create a project and then give a whole bunch of context through documents to the AI to say, here's my voice, here's my past scripts, here's the beat sheet, here's the matrix, here's the character descriptions, here's all these things. So it has context. Because if you just go to chatgpt.com and you don't have an account and you just put in, write me a scene, it's going to be pulling from weird, crazy places from all over its training,
Yeah.
language model.
Yeah. I even have to get after it a few times. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you got to stay within the realm of these sources.
Yeah. So I love the idea that I use it as a tool, not a voice. And so whenever I am working with AI to write something, my verbiage that I'm putting into the prompt is, you are my editor. You are not writing for me. So I say, don't write for me. I want to do the writing, but give me questions, give me prompts, give me ideas, give me structure, whatever it is. And it feels like, okay, well, now I've got a really efficient co-writing partner or editor. I much prefer the AI editor because it's real time. I don't have to send a draft and wait 3 weeks for the editor to go through it and give me feedback. I'm doing it line by line or paragraph by paragraph in real time. And it takes 5 seconds for it to generate its response. And I can go, no, I disagree. Give me another idea. And it doesn't have an ego.
Yeah.
I love that aspect. And I love that you're using it that way because, like you said, it's more fun. It sparks creativity. You can get a couple of, I think one thing writers do a lot that's not great is they just go with the first idea. And that's kind of like what ChatGPT would do. If you just said, write me a script with 2 people in a diner talking about this, it would just give you like the very base level concept of that scene. But if you say, give me 6 ideas, you can go, oh, yeah, I thought of that one, that one. Oh, I didn't think of those 2, and I never would have thought of those 2. Oh, it's probably somewhere in between those. And because you're using your taste, now you're able to more quickly get to like the 3rd or 4th idea you would have had, but you're doing it in 2 minutes instead of 2 days of rewrites.
Yeah. It's been a very useful tool, and I hope that next week when we're chatting, I'll be, let's see, that's 7 days from now, we'll be on page 70 to 85.
Oh, man. So have you written page
Yeah.
1?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Saturday, I flew back. I mean, today's Monday. Flew back from Atlanta and had the night I finished, Saturday night, we did our final, Friday night, did our final interviews and things like that. Had all of those uploaded, transcribed, put into AI, and I already had my 90 beat structure. And so sitting on the plane, it's a 4-hour flight. I think for 2 hours, I worked on my laptop and got about 13 pages done.
Boom. Love it.
So we'll keep hopefully that pace.
Yeah. Very, very fun. Garrett, I'm glad we finally arrived here at season 3. Like I said, next episode, we'll hopefully be able to talk about the next project that I've lined up. It's a short project, more of a proof of concept type deal, but we are meeting again on Friday. Once I have that meeting and get some more clarity on where we're at in the process and that I can actually talk freely about it on the show, we'll hopefully give everybody an update on that next week. So exciting times ahead. I'm really looking forward to reading this draft and how this story plays out. And especially, I do think there's some interesting conversations to have around not just the writing, but getting into pre-production. At what point do you feel comfortable doing that? All those things we'll touch on in this season of Truly Independent.
Okay, Daren, thanks.
Amazing.
Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us. If you are enjoying Truly Independent, please share and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the journey. Today's episode was edited by Michael Bradford and produced by 3 Coin Productions.